Here are 4 ways a 75-year-old truck can impact your health, wealth, and relationships. This truck is changing lives. Hi, I'm Timothy Paulson, and this is the Totalityism podcast, episode number 5. As you know by now, I merge art and theology to help you become everything God created you to be in a new art movement called Totalityism, where merging art and theology helps to create a catalyst for creating unity, friendship, and love between all races and faith groups. I'm delighted you've joined me for this episode. What do I mean by this truck, 75 years old, that it's changing lives? Well, I'm excited about sharing this with you. It's 4 powerful principles for taking your health, wealth, and relationships to the next level. That's what this episode is about. I'll introduce the 4 principles by taking you on a tour, so to speak, that tells you the story behind my rescuing the 1947 truck from a barn and its almost magical influence as an ambassador of unity, friendship, and love. I'm talking here about a barn find. Little did I know that when I bought the 75-year-old truck, it's much more than just a cool truck. It turns out it's a catalyst for positive change through greater creativity and imagination. I discovered the dusty and neglected 1947 International KB2 truck in a barn in Heber, Utah, when my wife and I were there buying antiques on a weekend getaway. The truck was completely covered in dust. It didn't have a hood. It wasn't running and hadn't seen the light of day for years. Yet, despite its flaws, and you can see the flaws, this is a 75-year-old truck. It has a lot of what's called patina. Wow, some people say, hey, Timothy, are you going to paint that truck? What color are you going to paint it? I said, are you kidding me? It took 75 years for it to look this way. This beautiful natural patina. So again, despite its flaws, the dents, the cracks, and everything else, I fell in love with the truck the first time I saw it. My wife and I returned home. I texted the owner, Jerry, several times over a few days. And he finally, though reluctantly, agreed to sell it to me. I later returned to the property. I wrote a check and had the truck towed an hour away to a mechanic near where I lived who got it up and running within just a few days. I was not in the market to buy a classic old truck. The idea, it wasn't even on my radar. I bought it without knowing what I was going to do with it. But after I got it home, idea after idea rushed to me, and I saw that the 47 wasn't just an ordinary barn find. Instead, this truck is a catalyst for helping to change lives. A Saturday morning drive. All right, now I recently took the truck for a Saturday morning drive to Alberta, Utah, which is about 30 miles from my home, where there's a non-operating 110-year-old Sinclair gas station, a popular spot for photographs. Now, I took dozens of pictures of my truck in front of the gas station. I love them. They're wonderful. Imagine a 75-year-old truck sitting in front of a 110-year-old gas station. It makes quite a picture. Now, this Saturday morning drive applies to you becoming everything that God created you to be. A friend of mine, a brilliant entrepreneur named Garnet Morris, told me his business grew by a multiple during the first year of the pandemic by focusing on what they could do in his business, not on what they could not do. Now that's a simple yet powerful idea. Think about that for a second. Focus on what you can do, not on what you cannot do. Now the 47 truck is not made for a 1,000-mile drive, but it's great for a Saturday morning cruise. What this teaches me about taking relationships, health, and wealth to the next level is to focus on what you can do, not on what you can't do. Now, by the way, a nice bonus in this 75-year-old truck is that it has a newer Chevy 350 engine that absolutely roars. I knew the engine looked great when I bought it, but I hadn't heard it run before because it wasn't running. So it was a big bonus when I listened to the engine roar for the first time. I like to put it like this relative to you. You have a motor inside of you with the potential to roar as well. Like my truck, your engine may have been a bit silent in recent times, but it can be unleashed to help you become all God created you to be. My question is, what can you do to improve your health, your wealth, and your relationships today? I'm going to tell you next about the Beetle Sculpture. Now, this is fun. As an artist, and my art can be seen at paulsonartshow.com, I was thrilled to discover that the truck provides a wonderful frame for my art. I painted the Fab Four onto a tree stump that I saved from a campfire in the mountains of northern Utah when on a camping trip with friends several years ago. The art, again, this beautiful sculpture, that's what you call it when it's three-dimensional, the Beatles painted onto this looks fantastic in the back of the 75-year-old truck. Now you can see that piece of art, the Beetle Sculpture, on my website, paulsonartshow.com. And you'll see that it's in the back of the 47 truck. Now I love to drive and take photos of the truck in different environments, as I've said. The truck is just plain cool. Whether it's at a 110-year-old gas station in the early morning hours as I'm driving it to the gym, or on a grassy knoll with majestic mountains in the background, pictures I've taken of it near my home. Now what's really fun is when the 47 truck became art. This is what I mean. I've recently discovered the truck is also a desirable subject for a piece of art. I painted a 20-inch by 20-inch abstract picture of the truck that you can see at paulsonartshow.com. If you scroll down on the page, you'll come across a photo of a painting of a green truck with a beautiful abstract background. That's the truck I'm talking about. Now I'm going to share with you 4 success principles that apply to you in helping you become everything that God created you to be, because that's what we're talking about with Totalityism. The truck introduces the Van Gogh portrait principle that I invented. Now that might sound a little funny to you, and this story might, but when I get impatient with someone, I can immediately change the way that I feel from negative to positive by picturing that person in a portrait painted by Vincent van Gogh. That's right. This is a principle I advance in my book. I call it the Van Gogh portrait principle. Now, my book is Totalityism, The Art of Becoming All God Created You to Be, and you can get that on Amazon. Now, this principle, the Van Gogh portrait principle, here's how it works. If you have negative feelings towards someone, picturing them in a Van Gogh painting hanging on a museum in a wall can change your state. You'll see how their value and their attractiveness increase dramatically. Now again, this might sound a little strange, but you'll see that this works well with self-worth too. Are you feeling down on yourself? Picture yourself beautifully displayed in a Van Gogh portrait. It's a fun way to change your state instantly. Now, of course, not everyone loves Van Gogh art. You may not. I do. Isn't it interesting to think about this concept? You're upset with someone. You picture them depicted in a beautiful, colorful, thickly applied paint in a Van Gogh painting. And all of a sudden, wow, that person is almost immortalized. So by painting my 47 truck in a painting, my love and appreciation for the truck went to an even higher level. This is really illustrative of the Van Gogh portrait principle that can help you in all of your relationships. Now, as you can tell, I love this truck. I love to take photos of it from different angles and different settings. And I love looking at it through the lens of how it can help inspire life change. How else can it change your life? I've already shared the first one, the Van Gogh portrait principle. Now, as simple or maybe even as silly as that seems, it is powerful. That was number 1. So again, the truck is illustrative of 3 more powerful principles that I advance in my book. Number 2, the rise from the dust principle. Now, I spoke about this in an earlier podcast episode, but let me just tell you really briefly and talk about how this all ties together. Years ago, I transformed a dusty old $7 yard sale painting into a $1 million piece of art. The painting rose from the dust in a yard sale very much as the truck did after years of neglect in a barn. I turned the yard sale painting into a $1 million abstract painting that you can see on my website, paulsonartshow.com. The principle applies to you and me as well. You can be down in health, in finances, in relationships, and you too can rise up. The painting inspires people to think differently, to know that if a painting can go from being in the dust and valued at $7 to rising up in transformation to become a $1 million painting, to know that they can rise from whatever lows they find themselves. Now, I invite you to ponder how that applies to you. The third principle, the perfect imperfection principle. Now, again, this is from my book and based on a painting. The principle is about changing imperfections to perfection. I painted a picture of 4 great artists with flaws that they didn't try to hide. The 4 great artists are in the same painting, and they are Vincent van Gogh with a cut ear, a bandage over the cut ear, Mick Jagger, very advanced age, Andy Warhol wearing a wig, Rembrandt showing his wrinkles. The artists instead celebrated these imperfections. The 47 truck illustrates the same principle. It has flaws, it has blemishes, dents, cracks, wrinkles, and so forth, all of which make it, and I like to put it this way, perfectly imperfect. The same is true for you and me. Are there flaws in your health, wealth, or relationships? You can flip those flaws to fabulous because your blemishes and imperfections make you one of a kind and perfectly imperfect. It's about making the most of what God has given you while celebrating your beautiful imperfections. Now, let me make something clear. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't strive to improve yourself. For example, I cleaned the truck. I got it running. I put new tires on it. I got new brakes. I improved the interior. I got the hood on it. You can do things to improve yourself too in important areas of life such as health, wealth, and relationships. Here's the point. You can celebrate the things about you that are uniquely you, that are your imperfections. This will improve your attitude, your outlook on life, and your self-image. You can be celebrating those things as you're constantly striving to do better and become all that God created you to be. Principle number 4, the rescued principle. So just like I saved a piece of wood from the fire and painted the Beatles onto it, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I rescued the 75-year-old truck from the barn. I've transformed it into a vehicle that's a literal and figurative vehicle of inspiration, change, unity, love, and friendship. Think for a moment about how you can be rescued from challenges in areas of life, including your health, wealth, and relationships. What would that look like? What do you need to do to get there? Who can help you with it? There is always help available. Let me conclude this episode by talking about this. The parallel with 4 of my core success concepts and principles that I share in my book and in my coaching programs and elsewhere. They didn't occur to me until after I bought the truck. I was delighted to discover its connection with the Van Gogh portrait principle, the rescued principle, the perfect imperfection principle, and the rise from the dust principle. Now, this is just the beginning of the 47 Trucks life and helping to illustrate how to go to the next level in all important areas of life to help you become everything that God created you to be. So a couple of things that I want to mention as we conclude. If you haven't got your copy of my book, Totalityism, The Art of Becoming All God Created You to Be yet, you can get it on Amazon. So go, you can get it as a hard copy or as an ebook. You'll discover 16 powerful principles, including the 4 I've mentioned in this podcast episode. To see my new virtual art gallery, I've mentioned it earlier, go to paulsonartshow.com to see a lot more. So there you go, 4 ways this 75-year-old truck can impact your health, your wealth, and relationships, and how this truck is changing lives. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I've certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. I love talking about how you can become all God created you to be, about totalityism, about the new art movement of the 21st century, about using the art and the movement to help create unity, friendship, and love between all races and faith groups, and about this very cool art. Go check it out. Again, you'll see my painting of my truck, and you'll see the others. PaulsonArtShow.com. Until next time, onward and upward you go.